You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Aim high, let him see your fire. Pray for me, daughter.
Welcome into STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. I am your host, Sean Bingham, and today is a special day. Why? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, Kobe Bryant went vintage Mamba and dropped 60 in his farewell game against the Utah Jazz last night. 60. Not 16, 1-6, but 60, 6-0. Kobe Bryant somehow, some way, scored 60 points last night. That was absolutely incredible. We're going to talk a ton about that. But also, the Golden State Warriors dethroned the 95-96 Bulls for best regular season record in NBA history by beating the Grizzlies last night to get to 73-9. 73-9. This was one of the most exciting final, days of the regular season that I can remember for the NBA. We had playoff seeding implications everywhere. We had people fighting to get into the playoffs, like the Rockets and the Jazz. And then, of course, we had Kobe Bryant, and Kobe went for 60. Today's also unique because I'm not in my normal spot at a nice desk with a nice microphone and nice computers in front of me. I'm actually in a rental car on the road in Denver right now, recording this from my phone and my headset because I just couldn't pass up posting a podcast about such an epic night, but didn't have my stuff with me. So this is what I've got. But I've been testing it. I feel like it sounds good enough. We're going to give it a go. But if just as a little disclaimer, if the audio is not quite up to par, that's why. But let's talk about Kobe Bryant. Last night was absolutely incredible. I had to get up at 3:30 to catch this flight. I had a 5:40 flight to Denver, and then I'm going from here to Tampa. Long story. But regardless, I couldn't get myself to turn the TV off and go to bed. There's no way. There's no way I was going to miss that Warriors game going for 73, and there was really especially no way I was going to miss Kobe Bryant in his final game of his 20-year career with the Los Angeles Lakers. 20 years with one team. I mean, that in and of itself is absolutely incredible. So Mamba goes for 60. Took him 50 shots to get there, which, by the way, is only the fourth. He's only the fourth player in NBA history to take 50 shots in a game. So he had to jack up a lot of shots to get that 60. But the Lakers won, and he shot 22 of 50. 22 of 50, that's 44%. That's pretty darn good. Inside three-point range. So from three-point range, he was 6 of 21. That's bad. But that left him at, what would that be, 16 of 29 from inside the three. That's a good percentage. So Kobe Bryant went vintage last night. He wasn't dunking and stuff like that. In fact, he could get to the hole. He just can't get above it to dunk it anymore. But he was hitting his shots, at the end of the game, his clutch shots. And he had the game winner. He had the go-ahead bucket, a really sweet clutch jumper, followed by the game-clinching free throws, and then just the nail in the coffin. He has that full-court pass for a dunk with the assist that really sealed the deal for the Lakers and got them the win over the Jazz. But Mamba went for 60. That is a record in the NBA this year. It is a record for oldest player to ever score 60 points, obviously. I mean, that's a night that will never be forgotten. Kobe Bryant going for 60 in his last game as an NBA player, every game of which was with the Los Angeles Lakers, 20-year career. And that storyline, the 17-win Lakers beating the not going to the playoffs Utah Jazz, who finished 40-42 on the year and had been eliminated from the playoffs just minutes before tip-off by the fact that the Rockets beat the Kings to clinch that 8 seed in the playoffs. So the game was kind of meaningless. In fact, you got to wonder if the outcome had been different if the Jazz were still fighting for a playoff spot. I personally think it would have been. But regardless, Mamba went Mamba, and he dropped 60 and gave us all something to cheer about. And that overshadowed the Warriors getting win number 73. It was a bigger deal. It was more fun to watch. It was more entertaining. It got more, attention on the news and on Twitter. Mamba going for 60 overshadowed an NBA record 73 win season by the Golden State Warriors. The San Antonio Spurs, we're going to get into them. They finished 67-15. That's a record for the San Antonio Spurs, and they haven't been talked about all season because of these Warriors. So the Lakers, though, are the laughingstock of the NBA right now, and you got to wonder, what is Kobe Bryant's legacy? What legacy does he leave? This is a guy that, I got to be honest, he kind of just, I wasn't his biggest fan most of his career. He kind of bothered me. I didn't like the arrogance. I hated the fact that he started the All-Star game one year when he wasn't even a starter for his own team. I mean, that shouldn't even be allowed. That should not be allowed. But he was popular. He was the young kid, came out of high school and, won the dunk contest. And people just loved him. And, so he started the All-Star game one year and he was the sixth man on the Lakers. So I didn't like some of these things that came with him. I didn't like that he was trying to be Michael Jordan. It didn't feel like he was being authentic, but then you can't fault a guy for trying to emulate the greatest player of all time. It put Kobe, and we'll get into this, to me he's top 10. But Kobe Bryant, these last 3 years just hasn't been himself. He dealt with injuries. The Lakers have sucked, to say the least. In fact, the Lakers, the last 3 years combined, have won fewer games than the Warriors did this year alone. I mean, talk about a role reversal in the state of California when the Warriors are winning 73 games and the Lakers are winning 17. That's incredible. And Kobe kind of did this to himself, I mean, he kind of did it to himself. This is a guy that he could have gone and he could have taken a Tim Duncan approach and said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take less money. I'm going to take a lesser role. And I want to win. I want to win some games. I want to go out with a championship. I want to be in the playoffs. But he didn't want to do that. He did not want to do that. He wanted to take 30 shots a night. He wanted to try and score 25 points a night. He wanted to be the star. He wanted to get his $30 million. Can't fault him for wanting the money. He earned it. I mean, the Lakers this year won, like I've said, they won 17 games, but I can guarantee you they got that $30 million worth with this farewell tour they've been on. So Kobe Bryant, I mean, I don't even know what tickets went for last night, but it felt like, from the looks of things, that it was like celebrities only in the building. I mean, Jay-Z was there. I mean, Jay-Z's a Brooklyn guy, and he's out there in LA, sitting courtside. So it just seemed like everywhere you turned, it was just another celebrity. I mean, you saw how many players were there. They had the really cool video to start the game or pregame. Magic Johnson comes out, introduces Kobe. They play this awesome highlight video and cool interviews from guys around the league and past players and current players and former teammates, and everybody congratulating him and thanking him and things like that. It was really, really a special night. But you couldn't help but think, as the Lakers were losing, and you're thinking, they're not going to the playoffs. It's the worst record in franchise history. This is a very storied, very proud franchise. Truly, as much as I hate to admit it, they're the greatest franchise in the NBA, historically. They're better than the Celtics, in my opinion, because they've done so much more lately. They're 5 championships in the last, 15, 16 years. They've won 5 championships, and the Celtics have 1, So they've just done, overall, they're the winningest team in NBA history, and they're second most in total titles, only to the Celtics, second only to the Celtics. But they're only behind by 1, if I'm not mistaken. And they've just done so much more lately that and there's so many all-time greats that are on the Lakers. The Magic Johnsons and Kareem Abdul-Jabbars and Jerry Wests and even Shaq and Kobe and Wilt Chamberlain. Like, there's just so many great Lakers. And, that's something that I want to talk about as well. Like, Kobe Bryant, where does he stand on that list? Last night, we're kind of prisoners of the moment, right? Everybody wants to crown him the greatest Laker ever. Is he, though? Is he the greatest Laker ever? I don't think so. Magic Johnson sure thinks so. Magic Johnson stands up there and tells everybody, greatest Laker ever, Kobe Bryant. And that's very humble of Magic, because honestly, I think Magic's probably the greatest Laker ever. Maybe he's number 2 to Kareem. Those are the top 2 to me, though. I'd put Kobe third. I wouldn't put Kobe's career ahead of Shaq's, but Shaq didn't play only for the Lakers. Shaq had some fantastic years with the Orlando Magic, and then some pretty good years with the Miami Heat. His best years were with the Lakers, but he had really good years in a championship with the Heat. And then he had some fantastic personal accolade years with the Orlando Magic. They went to the finals and didn't win, but Shaq, to me, had a better career than Kobe, just not a better Laker career than Kobe, because Kobe was there for 20 years. So to me, Kobe's a top 3 or 4 or 5 Laker for sure, but not the greatest ever. You got to give that to Magic and Kareem, and I would probably put Kobe third, ahead of Jerry West, ahead of Shaquille O'Neal, ahead of Wilt Chamberlain. That's where I would put Kobe Bryant on the all-time Laker list. On the all-time player list, I'd give him like 10th. He's phenomenal. He's the second best shooting guard of all time behind Michael Jordan. But you got to put, career-wise, I put Shaq ahead of him. I put Duncan ahead of him. I put Magic and Kareem ahead of him. There's a handful of guys. I'd put LeBron and Larry Bird ahead of him. So I would put Kobe Bryant around that 10 spot for all-time greats. But last night was special. It's different than what Tim Duncan's doing on his, his career is kind of slowly ending, whereas Kobe Bryant seems to have abruptly ended. He hit the injuries and tried to come back and just couldn't, and then boom, it's over. And so he has the farewell season where he just tries to stay healthy, where he can walk off the court instead of being helped off the court due to an injury. And he did it. So kudos to him, but it's definitely a different legacy. The guy only got one MVP. Probably was deserving of maybe one more. I don't know which season I would say he was more deserving, but when a guy like Steve Nash has 2 and a guy like Kobe Bryant has 1, I feel like something's wrong with the system. So to me, that's kind of maybe a knock on his resume. He only has 1 MVP. He's got the five rings, but 3 of those rings, Shaq got the MVP of the finals. Kobe got the other 2, but guys like Jordan went 6 for 6 finals MVPs. LeBron, he's got 2 titles and he's got 2 finals MVPs. So Kobe just wasn't he was a 1-2 punch with Shaq, probably like Dwayne Wade and LeBron were with their first title there in Miami, where it's like LeBron's 1A and Dwayne Wade's 1B. Shaq was like 1A and Kobe was 1B. By the time they reached their third title, their first 2, it was a little bit, wider of a gap. Shaq being Batman and Kobe being Robin. But by the time they had that third of their three-peat with Shaq and Kobe, the gap had narrowed significantly between the two, to the point where LA wanted to keep Kobe around, and Shaq had kind of, his time there had run its course, and they had that chance at a 4th straight, and they lost to the Pistons, and the team fell apart after that. But Shaq went and got one with the Heat, but he was very much playing second fiddle to Dwayne Wade that year. So anyway, that's where I'd put Kobe on the all-time Laker list, is third, and I'd put him around the 10th, somewhere between 10 and 12 on the all-time list of greatest players. So great career, really special night, and of course the Warriors go for 73. And nobody really talked about it because there was so much focus on the 17-win Lakers with Kobe Bryant scoring 60. 60 points. I just can't even get over that. 60 points. Again, took him 50 shots, only the 4th player to ever shoot 50 times in a game. But when you win, and you come from behind and win, and you shoot 44% from the field, I feel like that's, okay, because in the end, the shooting percentage was good enough, and they got the win. So what else can you ask for, So really a cool night for Kobe, but the team that everybody really should be talking about, which they have been, of course, all season long, is the Warriors. 73 wins. I was kind of bitter. I was hoping the Spurs could beat them in one of those last 2 games that they had against them. They had 2 against the Grizzlies and 2 against the Spurs for their last 4 games. And I kind of assumed that they'd beat the Grizzlies both times. Ironically, the best chance they had to be beaten was that first game against the Grizzlies in Memphis a few nights ago, but they won by 1 point, and then the next 3 games were pretty easy. So, or the next 2 rather, against the Spurs and then the Grizzlies again. So anyway, the Warriors surpassed Michael Jordan's 96 Bulls, who finished 72-10, to get to 73-9. 73-9, pretty impressive. Steph Curry, I'm certain he'll be MVP again this year. If he's not, whoever doesn't vote for him needs to have their voting rights revoked, because he is far and away the MVP of the league this year. There's not even a close second. So Russell Westbrook can get a bunch of second-place votes, but he should not get a single first-place vote. James Harden shouldn't even be on the ballot. I don't care how many points he scores. I don't care. The guy does not play defense. He's a ball hog. He underachieves. He doesn't make players around him better. I do not want to see James Harden even getting votes. Give some votes to LeBron, number 1 seed in the East. Still probably the all-around best player in the league, but the way Steph Curry shoots the ball and the way his team wins, especially when he's playing well, you just can't take it away from him. Steph Curry is such a good player, and his team is so good. But now the pressure's on. They got to go get that championship because guess what? The Patriots in 2007, I believe, went 16-0. Never had been done before. The Dolphins back in the, whatever it was, 70s, went 14-0 and then won the Super Bowl. So total they were, whatever that was, 17-0 on the year. The season was only 14 games long back then, and then they had the playoffs, and so they finished 17-0. Perfect regular season, won the Super Bowl. Greatest team ever, right? Well, then that Patriots team, they get 16-0. They get everybody on the Dolphins to finally shut up, and then they lose the Super Bowl to the 10-6, or might have even been 9-7. I think they were 10-6 regular season New York Giants with Eli Manning. You know, the circus plays at the end where it was just like they're throwing up prayers, catching balls on their helmets, and the Patriots lose that game, and guess what? Nobody cares that they went 16-0 anymore. Nobody cares. Why would you? They didn't win the championship that year, so it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, yeah, it's something they can say they did. They're the only team to go 16-0 in the regular season. Whoop-de-doo. I'm sure they would have rather gone 10-6 like the Giants did that year and won the Super Bowl than go 16-0 and lose the Super Bowl. So now the Warriors absolutely have to win the title. They have to win the championship, or it literally will negate everything they did this year. They made it clear they were going for 73. They had the 1 seed in the West locked up, several nights ago. It was a foregone conclusion long before that. It was official a few nights ago. But they kept playing their starters, and they're young enough, I don't think that fatigue will be much of a factor in the playoffs. But if it is, people are going to point to the fact that they were so concerned about getting 73 that it cost them a title. So we'll see. The pressure is definitely on because the San Antonio Spurs just finished 67-15, the best record in franchise history, the gold star of the NBA for the last 2 decades. 50-plus wins every year that Tim Duncan's been there, except for one in the strike-shortened season. The Spurs are legit. The Spurs are very, very talented. The team now runs through Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge. So the Duncan, Ginobili, Parker era really is over. All 3 of those guys are still there, and they're still all 3 important pieces. But it is not their team anymore. This is Greg Popovich now with Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge, and a bunch of role players around them, including who used to be their 3 studs. They are now role players. So the Spurs are very good, and their 2 stars are young, and their 3 leaders get enough rest throughout the season and play few enough minutes that I don't think fatigue will be a factor for the Spurs either. So my guess is the Western Conference Finals comes down to those 2. But, I mean, the road to get there is not easy. The Rockets will probably get swept by the Warriors. Maybe they steal 1. But the Warriors should roll in that series 4, maybe 5 games. Then they will likely play, it's going to be the Blazers or the Clippers, but it'll likely be the Clippers. And the Clippers used to be their arch rival. Those Clippers-Warriors games in series used to be really, really intense. The Warriors have so far surpassed them that I don't really think that's the case anymore. I think they probably win that series easily, maybe also a 5-game series. And that would get them to the Western Conference Finals against most likely the Spurs, potentially the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are young and talented and won 50-plus games this year as well. So the Western Conference, those top 3 seeds are very, very good. Outside of those 3, I don't think from the Clippers down, Clippers, Blazers, Grizzlies, Rockets, and I think that's all of them. Maybe I'm missing one, but nobody else really has a shot, in my opinion, outside of Warriors, Spurs, and then OKC kind of has a shot, but not much of one. So that's the Western Conference playoffs, and I'm telling you, if the Warriors don't win it, 73 all of a sudden just doesn't matter. Jordan and the Bulls, they steamrolled into the finals, and they were actually up 3-zip against the Sonics in that 96 finals before they dropped 2 games in Seattle. And then that was back when it was 2-3-2 in the finals. And then they came back in Game 6 and won it at home. So the Bulls finished the season 72-10, won the NBA championship, 6-game series in the finals. And the Warriors need to match that at least if they want to be considered the greatest team of all time. And they've got a franchise record San Antonio Spurs team in their way. And then once they get to the finals, let's look at the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference wrapped up last night. And it was kind of interesting. The Heat blew the biggest lead in the last 25 years, I think it was. They were up by 26 points, or maybe it was the last 20 seasons. They blew the biggest lead in the last 20 seasons. They were up 26 on the Celtics in Boston on the second night of a back-to-back, looking like they were just going to roll. And they end up losing by 10. They were outscored by 36 points in the last, I think maybe 20 minutes of game time. It was crazy. But then the Hawks go and lose and, end up handing the 3 seed to the Heat anyway. So the Heat will play most likely in the second round the Raptors, who are the 2 seed, and then the Heat, or excuse me, not the Heat, but the Cavs are of course the 1 seed. So my guess is that the Heat could upset the Raptors in that second round, which could make for an interesting Eastern Conference Finals between LeBron and Dwayne Wade, the Heat and the Cavs. That could be really, really interesting. And I'm going to predict that. I'm going to go on record saying I think that's what happens. I think the Heat reach the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I think the Cavs beat them in 5, maybe 6. So most likely we're looking at a finals rematch, and guess what? LeBron's going to most likely have a healthy Kyrie Irving and a healthy Kevin Love. And last year, he almost single-handedly won the finals without those guys. The series went 6 games, and the Cavs were even up 2-1 at one point. So LeBron's going to get his guys. I don't think he really wants them as his guys anymore, but that's just kind of how things are going in Cleveland right now. I think they'd do anything to take back that Andrew Wiggins-Kevin Love trade, don't you think? I mean, holy cow. That trade, to me, has just been proven to be a total mistake. Kevin Love has not really fit in. It just hasn't panned out. And Andrew Wiggins has proven to be the stud that we all assumed he would be coming out of college when he was dominating at Kansas. So I think the Cavs would probably give that back if they could, but they can't. So let's see what happens in this year's finals. I'm predicting a rematch. I'd actually be surprised if we don't have a rematch. It's not like the college game where you can have a bad night and you go home. You can have a bad night and bounce back, and you got to win 4. So the better team almost always comes out on top in these 7-game series. The only thing that could make that, there is the rare case, like there was the year the Warriors beat the Mavericks, the 1-8 in the Western Conference final, or in the Western Conference playoffs. There was the year the Nuggets beat the Sonics in the opening round, the 1 versus 8 seed. That was a 5-game series though. So it does happen, but it's very rare. Unless there's an injury or something like that to a key player. So it doesn't always go chalk, obviously, but it's pretty safe to say that you're going to see one of the top 2 seeds reach the conference finals in each conference, if not both. For sure, one of the top 2 seeds will be there in the conference finals. And so this year, I'd be surprised if we don't see that happen in the West, with the 1 and the 2 both making it. In the East, like I said, I think it'll probably be the 3 seed that reaches instead of the 2. But in the end, I see the Cavs and the Warriors rematching, and I'm guessing that the Warriors win. But we're going to have plenty of time to talk about that. Where does this 73-9 team stack up against the 72-10 team? I don't think they're as good, but we're going to just see how the playoffs, play out. Because again, if they turn into the Patriots, who went 16-0 and then lost the Super Bowl, it's not even a debate. You can't even argue it. Is Steph Curry the MVP? Absolutely. Are the Warriors the best team in the league this year? Absolutely. But that's as of this moment. They've got 16 more wins to prove it. So we'll see if they can get those 16 more. But what a night in the NBA. What a night in the NBA. So much fun. And Kobe Bryant, has his farewell tour, and it was just a really fun night. And I just couldn't be more excited for these playoffs. So I want to hear from you guys, though. Hit me up on Twitter at Sean Bingham, SeanBingham, at Sean Bingham. And let me know what you guys think. I want to hear from you guys. And please do me a favor. Subscribe to this podcast as you're listening to it here on iTunes, or follow me on SoundCloud if you're listening there. Share this with your friends. I love seeing this thing grow. I love hearing your feedback. So give us a rating if you can. If you have literally 30 seconds, just tap that you want to rate it and give us a 5-star rating. It helps a ton to grow this thing. Check us out online, stbsportstake.com. But man, we're going to wrap up here because, like I say, I'm on the road. I'm in a car doing this from my phone and my headset. But what a night as Kobe Bryant goes vintage. And where would you rank that performance? Was it the greatest performance in the league this year? It was the most points. Was it the greatest performance? I mean, the clutch factor was there. The points were there. He still had 4 rebounds and 4 assists to go with it. The field goal percentage was above 40%. And they were down 10, and he brought them back, and they won, all truly because of him at the end. But it was a meaningless game. Last game of the season. Teammates were just giving him the ball and getting out of the way, setting screens. Literally, they were going to lose by 20 or win. It didn't matter to them. They were just going to make sure he got his shots. And when he started hitting these milestones, it was just incredible. It was like, oh, he's got 30. Wow, what a great game. He got 40. He got 50. It's like, holy cow, he's going to get 60. And he did it. So where does it rank? I know it's the most points in the NBA this year. But is it even like a top 5 performance? I mean, the night that Anthony Davis had 59, I think that was a bigger, the stakes were higher because it was, just kind of more... It was more of a regular game, I guess. He didn't need to take 50 shots to get there, and it wasn't like the team was just laying down for him. I'm not saying the Jazz were, but I do think if the Jazz were fighting for a playoff spot, that game goes differently last night than it did. But I'd be interested to hear where you guys rank that game last night, that performance, that Kobe had. 60 points is incredible. It's unbelievable, actually. There's very few guys that can do that. And so even if they are feeding him the ball, he still scored 60. He still scored 60. And Steph Curry, I mean, we're going back and forth between these two milestones last night. Steph Curry got his 400 3-pointers. 400 3-pointers in a season. Has the game changed? I mean, Steph can shoot it like nobody we've ever seen. But he also shoots it like nobody we've ever seen, if you know what I'm saying. He made 400 3-pointers in this season. I'd be interested to see how many guys in the history of the league have taken 400 3-pointers in a season. He made 400 3-pointers this season. The game is shifting dramatically. I've been watching a lot of highlights of the 72 win Bulls in 1996, and the game has changed dramatically. They were slashing to the hoop. They were all about getting to the rack, dunks, no-look passes, getting to the foul line, posting up, the triangle offense. And the three-pointer was like an afterthought. Steve Kerr, who ironically, of course, is the coach of the Warriors, was the three-point specialist on that 96 Bulls team. Jordan was a decent three-point shooter. It wasn't really his game. Pippen the same. Wasn't really his game. He could hit it, but not really even to the level that... guys like Harrison Barnes or, Draymond Green can hit it for the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors literally have Klay Thompson, obviously Steph Curry, Harrison Barnes, Draymond Green, Leandro Barbosa. All of these guys can hit three-pointers. All of them. It's crazy how good of a shooting team they are. And the 90s, and they're so good, and there's so many of them that are good. You used to think like, oh, it's going to come back to haunt them. There's no way you can't, you live and die by the three. These guys just live by the three. They don't ever die by the three. They're just living by the three. And basketball, it didn't used to be that way, but people are learning to shoot so well. And watching Steph Curry get his shot off, he's 6'3". He can get his shot off over a 7-footer whenever he wants because his handles are so good that he can break free for just a split second, and that's all he needs to get off a clean look, which for most guys they'd probably huck up an air ball with the speed at which Steph Curry gets his shot off. So these Warriors are just so good. And for Steph Curry to get 400 3-pointers, that's another milestone that was hit last night. It's just crazy to think about what's going on in the NBA with the 3-point shot. It's changed the game entirely. There are those that argue that it shouldn't be worth 50% more than a shot with your toe on the line, or a dunk. But that's the way the game's played, and personally, I think the fans love it. I mean, who doesn't like watching Steph hit 3 after 3 after 3? It's fun. But that is the comparison that we would be forced to make with the 96 Bulls and these Warriors, is the 3-point shot and the way the defense is played. Back in 96, there was illegal defense. You couldn't even play zone defense. But there was also a lot more hand checking allowed. The game was a lot more physical. So it's just tough. And I personally am a believer that regardless of which set of rules you played by, the 96 Bulls are going to be the team to win, because I'm not ever going to bet against Michael Jordan. Anybody that wants to bet against Michael Jordan, be my guest. But you're going against a guy that went 6 for 6 in the finals. Not only did he win all 6 rings, but he was the MVP of all 6 finals. So I'm not going to bet against a guy like that. If Steph Curry does this for another 5 years, then we can start talking about it. Let's see if the Warriors can get 3, 4, and even 5. I don't think there's any way they sniff 6. I just don't. Not at all, actually. And had Jordan not retired, would he have gotten 8? I mean, he retired at the peak of his athletic abilities. He was 29 years old. He was scoring 32, 33 points a game, had just finished a three-peat, and he retired. For 2 years, he takes off. The Rockets get both those finals, Olajuwon and Drexler. And then he comes back, and immediately the Bulls win 3 more. And the first full season he was back, he had like 17 games at the end of the 95 season. And then the 95-96 season was the 72-10 year. That was Jordan's first full year back in the league. He averaged just over 30 a game that year, and he was the MVP. And that team, to me, is the greatest of all time. But let's see. Let's see what these Warriors can do in the playoffs, and then we can really, really start to talk about it. But it's going to be a fun playoffs. It really is. And for once, the bottom of the West is actually better, record-wise, than the bottom of the East. The bottom of the East is the Pistons at like 44-38, and then the bottom of the West is the 500, 41-41 Rockets. The bottom of the East is higher. The bottom from 5, 6, 7, and 8, they have a higher win percentage than 5, 6, 7, and 8 in the West, which that hasn't happened in years. Usually the bottom of the East is like the 7 and 8 seed both have losing records. So maybe the parity is starting to come back into the league a little bit between the conferences. I think the top 2 teams are still obviously in the West with the Warriors and the Spurs, but the Cavs are right there at number 3, but then you got to put OKC at number 4. So you still have 3 of the top 4 teams in the West, but it does start to really even out after that. But I don't see teams like the Heat or the Raptors or the Pacers being at the same level as teams like the Clippers, who are the 4 seed over there in the West. So anyway, that's all the time I have for today. Like I say, I'm on the road, but this a historic night that I could not pass up the opportunity to chat with you guys about. Again, hit me up on Twitter at Sean Bingham on Twitter, and check us out online. But that's it for today's show. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out stbsportstake.com. Simply the best in sports.